Hi guys, I just want to say that Tom and I really have enjoyed doing these podcasts together. I hope that you've actually enjoyed it and, like myself, have actually learned things. This summer, on August 24th, we are going to do an amazing event right here at Under the Stars at Riverside in Oliver, British Columbia. We are going to do a live podcast. We're interviewing a couple of really interesting guests. We'd like to invite you to be there. I believe that you will not only enjoy it, but will be challenged and encouraged by it. So, August 24th, for more information, go to mscproject.com or to underthestars@riverside.ca. Save the date. Look forward to seeing you there.
There is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. And I will not ask you who said that, because I did the last time and you got it right, much to my disappointment. I was hoping to enjoy seeing you sweat and suffer, but my goodness, you knew that. Greg, let's talk about law. I remember I once heard someone say, an unjust law is no law at all. We live in a world of laws. At some point, we are to remind our viewers that we are talking about big ideas. At some point, and I still can't really put my finger on it, when exactly it happened, the idea of a legal code became a part of our human existence, as you know, as I like to call us earth dwellers. And we have laws. We have the laws of the land that govern how we are to live at peace with one another. We have courts that judge when those laws are broken. We have local courts, we have international courts, like the International Court of Human Rights. But at some point, this idea of law came into our collective existence. And within religious circles, the idea of a law is so big in religion. And like I said, with the idea of the devil, I do wonder, can religion exist without a law? What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because in the Christian narrative, we have a particular law that was given, or 10 laws in particular that was given, oftentimes referred to as the 10 Commandments. And these are laws that in the Christian narrative are very, very important and very critical for our understanding and how we operate. That was given at the time when the Israelites were leaving Egypt and going across the desert. The question that I'm interested in thinking about is, okay, this law then was codified and was put on tables of stone, if I recall the story correctly.
Yeah.
So prior to that, there was, I'm assuming, an understanding of what the laws were. So you do have laws that were in existence. So really the question is, another way of looking at it, is it a law if it isn't written down?
Is it a law if it's not written down? Like the law of gravity, I don't think it's written down anyway, is it? I guess in academic books, maybe. I think it does. It is a law.
But in the religious context, we typically want something written down and say, oh, here's what it is. It's codified for us.
Yeah, that's very true. And maybe let's. I like where you went with that one, Greg, because I think we do need to kind of like trace the history of law and how the law was kept over time.
Yes.
But if I were to ask you, Greg, firstly to define what a law is, I'm curious, how would you define that? What is a law?
So you just raised the question about gravity, and I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
Is that we have the law of gravity exists, even though it was never written down. We have, in the religious sense, we have a group of laws that in the tradition, in the Christian tradition, are quite important to us. But the laws that I think are somewhat that unwritten laws that are oftentimes understood without having to write them down. So what I'm coming to is that the value of human life is a law that it may not be chiseled in stone, but it is well understood in every culture and every time and place. There is the other person is valuable. Now, at times we may say, "Well, I'm a king, or I'm this, or that. I'm more valuable than the other person." But there's still a day when they realize that that person, no matter what the status is valuable.
Yeah.
So we do have I think, a lot of unwritten laws that are in existence that we make assumptions that everybody in every culture respects or understands. By and large, there might be a few exceptions.
Yeah. So I guess, and I agree with you, and this is making me all excited now. We could say that the foundation to legal codes is that the other is as important as I am.
Yes.
Okay, so that becomes a foundation to legal courts, arguably. Okay, I'm sure there's someone watching who would say, "Wait a second, I know this law, it has nothing to do with the other." Well, I think most laws, it is the other, be it the law of the land. If I drive at 100 k's an hour in a school zone, I am breaking the law. Because I can harm other human beings, and in that case, school children, when I do that.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
If I break into your car and I, drive off with it, I am doing harm to you,
Yes.
even though it's through your property.
Yes.
Okay, so the law that says I shouldn't steal is there to protect that very foundation that says the other is as important as I am,
Yes.
or as you are. Okay, now let's go back to one of the oldest law codes that we know of is the code or the law of Hammurabi. Okay, that's a very, let me say it this way, it is the oldest written code that we know of. Now, Hammurabi was a king of Babylon.
And just to preface it, that was
Okay.
written after, before what the Jewish people had the commandments.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting into very nervy portions here. It was the code of Hammurabi is older than the Jewish code. In fact, some people have argued, they have said, well, the Jewish legal code was copied.
Yes. It's remarkably close.
It is very close. It is very close. The only thing is that I think the argument of copying doesn't quite stick as well as we want it to stick when it comes to legal codes. You can't say, well, these guys said don't kill other human beings first, and then these guys said don't kill them other human beings secondly, so they copied those ones. I mean, hey, there, people will be angry at me for saying this. I think there's an argument to be made for universal laws, whether they are written down or not. You know, like it is just the way it is. Okay, you jump off a cliff. If you're a human being, flap your hands as much as you want, you will not fly.
Yep. I've tried that.
Yeah, and I imagine painful was your landing. So the Code of Hammurabi. Let me see. I have it written down here. I want to try and get exactly which one it is. In the list we have, number 250. Okay. If an ox goes to death a man while it is passing through the streets, then that case has no basis for a claim. Okay. So here I am, I'm walking through the streets in ancient Babylon, and here you are walking the other direction with your ox, and your ox decides to attack me, and it hurts or it kills me.
Yep.
My family has no claim in that. This is Hammurabi's law code, okay? Which, by the way, the biblical narrative has a similar code, right? 251, legal code number 251. If a man's ox is a known gorer, so this is well known. We know that your ox, kills people. It has killed me in that first example. Okay, now it is well known, right? And the authorities of the city notify you that, hey, your ox is pretty dangerous, but then you still don't blunt the horns. Okay. Now, if your ox goes the second person to death, then you are guilty. So your ox kills me. It's fine. We all didn't know your ox is mischievous. Okay. And then in 2 weeks' time, your ox kills Mr. Director. Then you have a problem.
Yep.
Okay. Now, Greg, that sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
I can live with that. That makes sense to me.
Okay. We have a similar law in the Bible, in the biblical account. The Jews had a similar law. Copied or not copied, that doesn't matter right now. Okay. Now, here's a difficult question for you. You have studied the biblical account. Do you know of any time where this law was put into action in the biblical account? Can you say, oh, here's a story where an ox killed someone. Oh, and they applied this law. Can you recall?
I cannot recall.
Guess what, Greg? You are right. Absolutely, there is no record of it.
Oh, good.
And even in the ancient world, outside of the biblical account, there is no record. Which then begs the question, could it be, and there's a question I'm posing to you here, could it be that the laws in the ancient world functioned differently than how we think of them today? Because you and I will read this and say, oh, every time an ox did this, this is what they did. And yet we have no evidence of this ever happening. Could it be that laws have a different purpose and a different function?
So what the law did is establish where the line in the sand was. This is wrong. What we don't have is just at least in my memory, we don't have any record of it actually being applied.
Yes.
So does that mean that the law isn't valid just because we have no record being applied? I'm not so sure it does. It does say that the law was on the books in both cases. It's on the books. The issue is the implication of that law.
Yeah.
How do you apply it? Was it important for the people to record when it was applied? Was it something that was common and, every time we got a speeding ticket, it was written up and documented? Maybe not. So I'm just saying is that in our world, we don't well, we grumble, but we don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't get written up in our life
Yeah.
history that he got speeding
Yeah.
ticket here.
So you're saying it's possible that they just didn't record it.
That's what I'm arguing, that is a possibility.
Okay. And my second question to you, Greg, is what's the possibility that the law didn't exist so that it may be kept word for word? So like this law of a cow that kills people, what's the possibility that the law was written down for, say, the scribes or the legal minds of the time to philosophize on?
Yeah, it's very possible that they did, and I think that's an interesting point. Is that this was possibly used as a guideline for people to understand. This was more of an informational event. We will oftentimes have a warning going out in the backcountry of British Columbia that there is a high avalanche risk happening.
Yeah.
It's not a law saying that there will be an avalanche, but it just means to say it's a possibility. So what I hear you saying is that perhaps these laws were functioning as a warning, like we would use a warning for avalanche. They were used as a warning that say, guys, watch your animals coming through town. If it does go this way, you're going to regret it.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is that we publish warnings, they publish laws. Is that what I?
Yeah, I'm saying it could be one of those you know, it could function in that way also.
Sure.
Because in the mind of the everyday person today, when this big idea that we're calling law came into our existence, it became an issue of it's either black or it's white. Okay? If the law says it, then this. If the law, like many of the laws, like, you know, if you break into someone's house and you steal things that are worth this much amount, you get this much time in behind bars. Okay. If you steal something, you know, it kind of like giving you the option as a thief to say, okay, do I want to spend 6 months in jail? So I should steal under $1,000, you know, kind of thing. And I'm saying, could it be that in the ancient world, the laws all functioned in a different way? They were not prescriptive, but they were philosophical.
Okay.
And so we tend to go back, like I know in the Christian narrative, you know, we go back and we read these laws and then we say, oh, yeah, okay, that means this was done in this way. I have an idea. To push that argument, or at least to explore it, that's a better word. To explore that argument, let's actually pick a law.
Okay.
And then look at the examples of that law being put into place. And then we can talk about this now with let's do a case study. Okay. A case study instead of...
Are we talking about bulls and horns?
No.
Okay.
adultery.
Okay.
The law against adultery. The biblical narrative. Mr. Director, could you put, if memory serves me correctly, we need to get a definition. Leviticus 20 on the screen. Leviticus 20. And I am pretty sure it's going to be verse 10. You put that on the screen for us here. Now, Greg, can you see it?
I can.
Can you read it for us?
If a man commits adultery with another man's wife, the wife says to his neighbor, both the men and the women, and the adulterer and the adulteress must be put to death.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions, Greg. What is the punishment for adultery according to that law?
Death, for what I've just read here.
Death. Okay. By reading that law, how do you then define adultery? What is adultery?
Give
it your best shot.
When a man messes around with a wife of another man, and I'm going to read between the lines, has sexual relations
Yeah.
with her. So this is about a man.
Yep.
that, by the sounds of it doesn't have to be a married man, but a man having sexual relations with a married woman
Yes.
of another man. That is my extraction of what I've just read.
Okay. So according to that, maybe Mr. Director, put another one there. Deuteronomy 22. This is interesting because if we're going to do a case study, we need to define our terms here. Okay? So I think it's Deuteronomy 22:22. Do you see it, Greg?
Yes, I do.
Can you read it for us now?
If a man is discovered lying with a woman who is married to another, they both shall die. The man who was lying with the woman as well as the woman.
Okay. If the man is sleeping with the woman and the woman is not married, is it adultery, Greg?
For the first verse, the first one we did, it would not be considered adultery.
And how about for this second one?
So let me just read it again.
Yeah.
If a man is discovered lying with a woman who is married to another, they both shall die. The man who is lying with the woman as well as the woman. They both end up dead.
Yeah, but the woman has to be married.
That's right.
Okay. So adultery, according to what we've just read here, is when a married or engaged, I guess, woman has consensual intercourse with a man who is not her husband.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I'm with you.
Okay. Now that we have a working definition, let's look at some cases. Let's do a case study now.
Oh boy.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. Do you know why it's gonna be fun, Greg? Because I get to put you on the spot here.
Made me sweat.
Yeah. There's one case in the biblical narrative, Judah and Tamar. How much of that story do you recall? Give us a reminder of that story. What happened there?
So Tamar
Yes.
is the woman. She's married to one of the sons, and for whatever reason, she doesn't conceive, and she and her husband passes away.
Yeah. That's the older boy.
Yes, the older boy.
Okay.
The second boy, same thing. They have relations, but he passes away.
Okay. Just pause a second right there. I'm sure someone is listening to this and thinking, what just happened there? Okay. So the first guy, and according to the law of the land, if the older brother has no children, then the younger brother can have children with the older brother's wife. When the brother is deceased, then the children belong to the older brother. That's just the law of the land. That's their law.
Okay.
Okay. So now the younger brother has relations with Tamar and still no kids, and then this boy dies also.
That's right.
Okay. Continue, Greg.
And there's a third boy,
Yeah.
but he's too young.
Uh-huh.
So at this point in time, I don't remember all the details, but and I'm going to go by memory here. At this
Yeah.
point in time, Tamar is being advised that she should wait until the young lad becomes sexually mature. At some point in time,
Why did Judah make that reasoning? That's an important part in the story. Because it's Judah who says to Tamar, hey, two of my sons have died and this last one is pretty young. How about you just just wait for him to grow up or go home. Once he's old, we'll call you back. And do you remember why Judah was doing that?
No, I don't remember that particular detail.
Yeah. I think it says in the narrative that he was afraid that his last boy will suffer the same outcome as his two other boys.
Okay.
So basically, this girl kills men.
Okay.
Right. What happened next?
So then she is living in the family area.
Yeah.
And at that time, the families all lived in this, I'm saying, relatively close proximity. She doesn't have a child, but she is interested in becoming pregnant. She goes down to the marketplace or an area where at that time of year when the shepherds are coming in, and again, she takes on the role, or dresses as a prostitute, and has sexual relations with the dad, who is
Judah.
So Judah and her have sexual relations. She becomes pregnant.
Okay, wait, Greg, wait. Let's throw a definition in there. Has adultery happened at that point? Is Judah married?
Judah is married.
Okay. How about Tamar?
Yes, she is married. She has been married.
Okay.
So she is technically a single person.
No,
No.
I don't think so. Because by the law of the land, she has been betrothed to the youngest boy now.
Okay. Yes. She's
Okay.
yes. Even though they have not had a marriage,
Yeah.
she is still
She's the wife of
the potential wife.
potential wife. Okay. So, by definition, adultery has happened here. You have a man who is sleeping with this woman who is married or engaged to be married to another man.
Okay. Does it change anything that he doesn't realize that?
Oh my. Does it change anything that he doesn't realize it? I think I've tried it. It didn't work the last time I did it, to say, to the police officer, the limit was 80. I didn't see the sign. That's why I was doing 140. My apologies. They still wrote that nice piece of paper that's asking for my money for me. I don't like those papers, but anyway, that's an idea for another time. Who said there should be fines? Does it make a difference? I don't think so, Greg. What do you think?
So the issue is that is it okay for a married man to have sexual relations with a perceived prostitute?
I think that's a discussion that is worth having. Is it okay to do that? I don't think so.
I think I feel comfortable with the comment,
Yeah.
to put it that way.
Yeah.
So what is happening here is that you have a married man having what he believes sexual relations with a prostitute, which again, it's questionable.
Yeah.
The woman involved is betrothed to a young man.
Yeah. I guess the law is blind, Greg. Or should it be? At the end of the day,
There's two violations that would, if
Yeah.
I was in a situation of judgment, and say, look, both of these people have violated this law of
Yeah.
adultery.
yeah. And when that happens, as you were clearly pointing out in the story, Tamar does let Judah know what has happened, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Later on,
Yeah.
she-
In fact, no. Actually, let's go through that. That's an interesting part. Judah finds out that Tamar is pregnant.
Yes.
And Judah says,
Orders for her execution.
because the law says,
Yep.
so that's in line with the law. Says, oh, well, and she has to die. Until he finds out who the daddy is.
Yep.
And surprise, surprise, it is you, Judah. You are the father of this child. And then the guy has a change of heart. Oh, he says, Tamar is more righteous than I am. Starts to praise her. In that case, Greg, was the law followed accurately? The law says where there is adultery, the judgment, the outcome should be death. Did death happen?
No. No. In fact, she gives birth to twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they didn't keep the law, did they?
No, but it's important to know who the daddy is. What I'm coming to that, what I'm trying to say indirectly is that the person that was calling for the execution was a person of authority, Judah.
Mm-hmm.
But once he realized that that was his child there, that she was carrying, then all of a sudden the laws fell away because he realized that he'd screwed up.
Yeah.
And we see a dynamic change right there and I love to see the expression on his face.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying is that all of a sudden the realization that the law is not as important as the person.
So at that point, it's not the letter of the law that's important. It's the people who are affected.
Mm-hmm.
And they start considering all those dynamics. And I mean, an outsider could argue and say, oh, no, you don't need to consider this dynamic or that dynamic. But they did.
Yes.
They did. Let's look at another case study. This one I'm pretty sure you'd know very much, so I won't have the pleasure of seeing you suffer as you're thinking about it. David and Bathsheba.
Yes.
Beautiful name, Bathsheba. What happened in that case?
So in this case, David is standing out on his balcony. I'm putting some
Yeah.
words in here that I really don't know if it's in the scripture. But anyways, he looks out and he sees Bathsheba taking a bath. I'm assuming there was a moderate level of light taking place at that time. So he could see her taking a bath, which is interesting discussion on its own. Unfortunately for Bathsheba's husband, he's at war.
Yeah, in the front lines.
On the front line. And so David knows that he's going to be there for a while and he invites her over and they have sexual relations. Mm-hmm. She becomes pregnant. And then he says, oh boy, I'm in trouble here when my warrior comes home. He comes home and he says, you know what, I feel really bad about leaving the front line. I want to sleep in the doorway of my house. And he doesn't have any relationship with his wife. He goes back there the next day. And David says, I can't hide this now.
Yeah.
So he orders him to be put basically in a position where he will get killed, and he does.
Okay, so let's put our definition into this story. Did adultery happen in this story?
Yes.
Bathsheba is a married woman.
And he's a married man.
And he's a married man. Come to think of it,
he's married several times by now.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, in the definition that we read, it doesn't say the man has to be married. It's a very androcentric law.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, it seems like it's okay with men being either married or not married, but the woman which is a point worth putting out there, and as bad as it sounds,
Yeah.
and I think it is bad. But so adultery has happened here, okay? And on top of that, as you are saying, they put this fellow in the front lines. I think the text says where it is hottest.
So it could be argued that he was murdered.
He's murdered.
So if you have adultery
Yeah.
and murder.
So you have adultery and murder. Okay, we'll talk about murder another day. Let's go to the adultery part of it. Was the law enforced in this case? Because the law says in a case of adultery, both the man and the woman are to be put to death.
My assumption is that if they kept it quiet, nobody would know. And therefore, the law would not apply. But that obviously didn't happen. So to answer your question, no, the law was not applied.
Okay, so let me just take this time to bring us back to the question that has brought us this way, Greg. And the question is, were the laws kept differently back then? And so far, in this case of adultery, in case number 1, Judah and Tamar, the law says someone has to die. Both of them have to die. No one died. In fact, a conversation was heard, and the situation was looked at differently, and no one died. In the case of David and Bathsheba, the offenders
Did not die.
didn't die. In fact, do you remember what happened in that case?
She gives birth to a child. And,
Before that, Greg? Oh, I love this part.
yeah.
I absolutely love this part.
So what happened is that at that time when David was in rule, there was a prophet. Essentially, he had a role as a priest. I'm not sure exactly, but the term prophet is applied to him. Again, we could get a definition on that, but he was a prophet of God, and so he comes in with advanced knowledge of the situation, and he gives a really interesting story to David about a shepherd and a sheep. And do you want me to go into the details on that one?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I remember
so-
the story that he says basically what you've done, David, is wrong,
Yeah,
which is something we know from the law,
yeah.
that what they've done is wrong. Okay, my question is, after that, what does David do? What do David and Bathsheba do? Do they remain separate?
No,
David actually married her.
he marries her, but the child actually dies.
Yeah,
And then the second child that they have together
yeah.
becomes a very famous king many years later.
Yeah. So the only individual who faced the death penalty in that story is the one who had no choice in the sin. The child died.
And her first husband dies. or
Her
is
first
murdered.
husband dies. Yeah.
So you have two dead bodies.
Yeah. But the people who actually caused this entire mess,
Yeah.
nothing happened to them.
Nope.
One more case. me see if I remember this one correctly. So Abraham and Sarai get to Egypt, and Abraham is scared that the Egyptians will see how beautiful his wife is, and they'll kill him because, then at that point she's not married, then they will marry her. I mean, clear reasoning, okay? So then he says, you know what, when they ask you, just say, you're my sister. So, of course, someone tells the Pharaoh that there's a beautiful lady in town, and the Pharaoh sees her and thinks, okay, I'm going to make her my wife. Now, a bit sketchy on the details here, but I'm going to take that step and maybe in another conversation talk about it, that adultery happens in that scenario, which is not a strange thing for the ancient world. Adultery happens in that scenario. But Sarai doesn't get punished, or at least no one dies in that case. Again, no death. I mean, I could go on from one case to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other. And in Christian context, take Jesus. A woman is brought to him, and in that case also the man wasn't brought, but just the woman. And she has been caught in adultery.
Yes.
And Jesus manages to, I think he said, whoever hasn't done anything wrong, then throw the first stone. Okay, yeah, let's keep the law, kill her. And then they all put their stones down and they walk away. Okay, no one comes back and says, oh no, the law, we have to, because the law says this has to be done. And so if I take all these cases, Greg, now, tell me if I'm off to lunch here again, because you know me, I'm often off to lunch.
Often.
In all these cases, the letter of the law is not enforced. But instead, the uniqueness of each situation is taken into consideration.
Okay.
And the outcome is different. Is it safe, Greg, to say when it comes to moral laws, I'm going out on a ledge with this one, when it comes to what we can call moral laws, always take the situation into consideration? That's how they did it in the ancient world. When we look about the history of legal codes, like, the cow that we spoke about, that we don't have cases of, we spoke about that. And here we followed a case of adultery, several places where it happens, and no one is killed. Should we be taking the circumstances into consideration every time we consider moral laws? What do you think?
I think you have to. It's only rational to take a look at it. What's the context of what's happening? What's the understanding on this? I feel very comfortable with that. we need to put the person or people first. And in the same breath, I have to ask the question: if the law that we have as a society, as a organization, as a religious community, said this has value, these are valuable laws, and then we say, well, but, then does that not degrade the law, minimize it, dilute the law? I'm just saying, is there not? It seems like the accountability factor it washes out of it.
Yeah, you know what, Greg? I do think that just because something has not been tried and tested doesn't mean that it should be always found wanting. There are some things that are tried and tested and found wanting, and then there are some things that are found wanting and therefore left untried and untested. Okay? Yeah. So what you're bringing about here now, you're saying, well, does it lessen the authority or the weight or the depth of the law if we say every time we have to consider situations. I don't think we've done it before. And so we can philosophize on how it's going to look like, but this is an idea that I feel like in many circumstances it has been left untried and untested and just condemned as wanting to go with that. You know, like you and I have lived most of our lives around religious people in religious circles. In religious circles, it is a rare occasion when people will sit down to say, okay, adultery happened here. Let's look at the big picture. No, we always want to enforce the letter. And I'm saying, what would happen if we did it like how the ancients did it? Because they clearly looked at the big picture. I mean, you could say, good or bad. But they did, Greg.
Yeah.
They did. Or maybe let's bring something that has happened recent. And Mr. Director, you probably are going to want to throw examples of this on the screen as I'm pulling it off my mind here. Abortion has been a big issue in the world we live in.
Yes.
Okay, it's a big issue. The good people who are on the human rights and women's rights side of the camp are saying, no, every woman should be able to decide what happens to her body. Okay, the religious folks are saying all life is sacred. Okay.
Yes.
Be it life that is still in the womb, it is life, it is sacred, and therefore abortion is wrong.
Yes.
Okay, that's the law that's been thrown at that. And I am saying if we use the same concept like we've just seen in cases of adultery, then we can't throw that as a blanket to everything. We're going to say, you know what? There could be cases where abortion makes sense. Where do you stand on that? Now, this is a situation, this is fresh in the world we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's my personal views on it and my take on it. And again, this is not what I'm suggesting that somebody else should accept. I'm not suggesting that this is something that I can support by any religious documents. But my thinking is this. And I'm going to use an example, and maybe a bad one, but in the scriptures, they came across Jesus was with his disciples, and they came across a crippled, I believe it was a crippled person, and they asked who had sinned. Again, the question, and he says neither the parents. This is stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Another case, he says better off he was not born. So that implies that there is something to be considered, that not every life is not every life has the magnitude and the value.
Not every life is worth a living.
That's right. So what I'm coming to is, and I say this very, very respectfully, is that I have friends that are familiar with some of this issues much more than myself, and some of these beings are that are born, these children are born. If it wasn't for medical assistance that we have and technology today, their life would be quite short. But because we have technology and have tremendous resources, they can maintain the life of this child for many, many, many years. it can be very devastating on the couple and one thing after another. You get all sorts of
Yeah.
ramifications on it.
Yeah.
I feel that these choices are ones that each person should have the power and the right to make on their own.
Mm.
So I don't feel any need to take my understanding and belief and say, you know what, every life has to be lived out, be it through mechanical support or physical or whatever support. So the question is that, going back to abortion, does that parent have the right to terminate that life if it is possibly all the ramifications just outlined? There's some difficulties with it. That is a decision that I feel they should have the final authority to make and to say on it.
Yeah.
If the child is healthy, I think there's some real value in having that child come into the planet. There's adoption services, etc. on it. But what I'm also coming to is that I don't feel that in either case I have the right to hoist my belief system and implement laws and say this is what they should do. There is in many religious organizations that run institutions and hospitals, they have taken a position against abortion as a means of terminating a life, but they take a role where they will not do abortions, with a rare exception. If a mother comes in in an accident, etc., where either it's going to be the life of the mother or the life of the child. And if you lose the mother, it's a medical situation. I don't understand all the medicine, but they oftentimes struggle with this.
Yeah.
What do we do? And I am told that most of the religious run hospitals will favor the life of the mother, to save the life of the mother, because hopefully she could have another child. And if they have to, they will terminate the pregnancy. So from my perspective, I think it's one simple answer does not fit very well.
No, it doesn't.
And I don't believe that we should implement a law, but what we should do is value life. And that is something that I believe if we, as a society and as a community, put much value on a life and say, okay, this mother, for whatever reason, says, I really don't, it won't work for me to have this child. Maybe there's somebody else that's willing to take that child and raise them, etc. So I think life is valuable, but I think more importantly, even higher up the scale is that the law should be that they should give that right to that parent to make the decision.
Yeah.
And I think the concern I have is that on the abortion issue, is the freedom of choice trumps all other laws. That should be the case. They have to give that person freedom, because at the end of the day, if you go back into the Christian narrative, Adam and Eve made a very poor choice in the Garden of Eden. But God still said, I know this is going to go really bad. There's going to be much death, much anger, and anguish associated with making the wrong decision. But he still gave them the decision.
Yeah.
So I'm saying is that from my perspective, even though I may say, you know what, by terminating this pregnancy may be a poor choice from my perspective, I still think it's important that the decision, the law about freedom is more important about the law about abortion.
Yeah. Well, I would phrase it this way though, Greg, and this is again my view of it. It is not. I don't think it's an issue of which law is above which one. I think
true.
it is an interaction, a conversation between those legal codes, and it is not the place of an institution to say in this conversation, because in the case of, like you're bringing, there is, the choice has to be made between the mother and the child. Okay? And there is the legal code also about taking a life.
Yes.
There is, we have to do right by all life. Okay? So there are a number of legal codes that are in conversation with each other in this one complex situation, which is uniquely a part of what it means to be human. Okay. I think there has to be a conversation between those codes, but that conversation should not be dictated by institutional power. So an institution should not come in and say, oh no, in such situations, we are saying the code that should be upheld above all other ones is that abortion should never be done. Life is sacred. No, I think the people who are really involved in this thing, who are, this might be a good time to tell a story that you probably know. It's said that the farmer went out to his livestock, and he said, okay, I have news for everyone today. And so the cows and the pigs and everyone came and listened to the chickens, and the farmer said, listen, this evening we are not going to go hungry. We will have bacon for dinner. And the animals applauded, said, yes, the farmer is going to be fed. But the pigs didn't. Because they, in their mind, thought, wait a second, you guys are just participating in this. We are involved. For the farmer to have bacon on the plate, one of us has to go down. Okay. And I am saying those who are not involved should not step into that sacred space. I think it is sacred space. Those who are involved should be the key players in that.
And I would argue that decision should be a struggle to come to.
Yes.
I don't think it should be a flippant, it should be a discussion, and it should be a difficult decision, because in that process there will be consideration given to all sides of the situation, and I think the decision will potentially add more comfort no matter which way the decision goes, because we have struggled with it, we have tried to wrestle with it.
Yeah, I think ultimately, Greg, we all live with the decisions we make. And the key word there is the decisions we make. Not the decisions. I mean, we end up living with the decisions that are enforced on us. But if we can respect that sacred space, especially when it comes to legal issues of right and wrong, if we can respect that sacred space and say, okay, there is a law here or laws here that are that need to be addressed. Let's allow those who are involved to engage with what's happening first, and then secondly, to invite us in.
Yes, yes.
We're not going to just step in. We're going to wait to be invited in, because ultimately, and this is my argument, Greg, ultimately, and I think you would share the same idea, people cannot be more, no, the legal code cannot outweigh people in value.
Yeah. A person is always more valuable than the law.
Yeah. And so when we come to I think, and by the way, we could do this with a lot of other legal codes. And we'll go through them, and we'll go through all the case studies, and you'll discover that in each and every time that happened, people were put above
Yes. Yeah.
the legal code.
Yeah.
I can think of one right now, an example in the Christian context, where the legal minds of the time came to Jesus and they said, hey, your followers are doing A, B, C, D on a Sabbath. They should not do that. And at another time they said to him, hey, people can come on any other day to be healed by you, and you keep healing them on a Sabbath. You shouldn't do that. And Jesus says, the Sabbath
Yeah.
was made
For man.
for people,
Yep.
and not people for the Sabbath.
Yep.
So one is the operator,
Yep.
the other one is the operated. One is the driver, the other one is the driven.
Yeah.
So people are always above any legal code, be it moral, be whatever it is. And this, I feel, and I might be wrong. Maybe there are some people who have tried it out there, and they can feel free to write to us and say, oh, yeah, I know a time when this has been tried. I would like to hear about it. But I feel like this idea is one of those that has been found wanting and left untried and untested.
Yes. Yeah. No, I like what your comment that you're making here. Going back to your reference to the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So then, following that same line of thinking, the laws were made for man, but man was not made for the laws.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, if we go with that reasoning, yes.
Yeah.
So the laws, the legal codes are there to benefit me.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
They are here to be of service to me. I do not exist to be of service to the legal code.
Yeah.
And therefore, when the code is broken, or when the code has been tampered with, that becomes sacred space, because somehow this thing that exists for my good somehow is no longer working for my good.
Yes. Yeah. 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 And this is what I find very attractive. One of the very attractive qualities about the Christian narrative. It's very life nurturing, very life supporting, very life comforting, very life encouraging. And saying that, oftentimes the system will inverse it and make it very difficult. But if understood correctly, it becomes the law should be there to support people. It's there to help people. It's not about condemning people. We see examples of that. Yeah, we need to be aware of that, and you shouldn't go too fast to this to the speed zone.
Yes.
So, but my point is that it's there to help support.
Yeah.
And going slow through the school zones increases the probability that there won't be a child getting hurt.
Yeah.
And that's about what I see the whole concept of these laws is about. They are, to a large degree, a fence around the playground. That if you operate within these laws, within this fence, good things are probably going to happen to you.
Yeah, yeah. Greg, let me ask you one more question here. Do you think the state is the best institution to govern laws, especially the ones that have to deal with human morality?
Well, historically, the state has not shown they're very good at that, and historically, the churches and the religious institutions haven't demonstrated a particularly good amount of wisdom and insight either. So I'm not so sure you have a better organization, but I don't think they are the best organization or group.
So what do we do then?
I believe that we have to go back to this idea of giving these very difficult things time and people, and letting people struggle with these issues, find out the pros and cons on it, and have supporting people to surround individuals that are in difficult times, and let the person make that decision. Because I think that is, at the end of the day, then they know they are not bullied by the state or by the church. They have made that decision based on their connection with how they understand divinity. It's their connection on how they understand their community, their family.
Yeah. There is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. Again, if I asked you, Greg, I said, at some time in the story of our human history, an idea of law came into our shared experience as earth walkers. How has that idea worked? Has it been good, bad? What's your assessment? What are you happy about? What hurts you about it? It's an idea that we are living with. It's an idea that governs a lot of what we do, the idea of law. What's your take? How do you summarize it?
Talking about adultery, and I think quoting, if I get this quote correctly, Christ himself said, because of the hardness of your heart, I gave you the law. And I think in that comment rides a tremendous amount of truth. Is that if we are compassionate, and by I mean compassion, we are prepared to give same value to the next person as we place on ourselves. If we take that very simple concept, then the law becomes pretty marginal. But the minute I am more important than the other person, the minute that my child is more important than their child, all the things that go on with it, then you end up running into situations that are complicated and difficult. So has the law have value? The fact that we are dealing with problems in this world and not everybody holds that same concept, then you have to have some mechanism. And this is the next best mechanism that I'm aware of. It's like saying, well, we'll run on a regular gas, but we really could use premium gas. There's a better alternative. It doesn't cost any more, but it's a better alternative. And my point is that as individuals, we can run with the premium fuel in our brain, with our society, with our human. We don't have to, but if we don't, well, then we're going to go back to that. So it's the best that we have at this time.
Yeah. See, for me, Greg, the law has made, the idea of law has made, I think, humanity more conscious of the other. So I am more conscious of that the thing that hurts me probably hurts you also.
It's true, and I think you're onto something there. And as a dad, when I had young children,
Yeah.
about your age, there was kind of unwritten law in our family: no kids there should be allowed to go dancing on the table.
Yeah.
And because bad things could happen to you. You fall off the table and hurt yourself, and it's not a good thing to go dance on the table. So there was unspoken law or unwritten law, but it was very clear:
Yeah.
no dancing on the tables.
Yeah. Yeah.
As they got older, that wasn't an issue. But at time, that was what they needed. So I think that there is a time where these laws are helpful. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
But if you come to a higher level of understanding and appreciation of the bigger concept of what's happening, every life is important.
Yeah.
Then the laws become. You still should
Yeah.
dance on the table.
So I would say the law has continuously cultivated in me a hunger, a desire, and a consistent investigation of what is right. Because the law says, do not do this. It helps me look for the right. The right becomes something that is within my reach. And it is something I desire because the law, first of all, makes me conscious of the other. And then secondly, it puts me on this pilgrimage for that which is right.
That's actually a really interesting point that you raise, and I have to give you an illustration. Is
Yeah.
that it points you in the direction of rightness and what is truth. And many years ago, I used to produce product that went into boxes, be it apples, be it tomatoes, etc. And they were
Yeah.
graded. And the point that was is that you, as a grower, you want to get as much product into these boxes, because once they were in the box, you would actually get paid for it theoretically. So the issue was, it was the standard. What is the standard for apples or whatever it is? And you grow to the standard. So, okay, I need to get this grade. But when you're growing to the minimum standard, the mindset is different. When I switched, it's okay, how do I get the maximum amount of premium fruit out? I wasn't trying to get the maximum amount of fruit out. I was trying to get the maximum fruit produced. It changed the way I thought about growing stuff.
Yeah.
And the law can oftentimes point us, well, what's the minimum standard that I have to live to? Versus what you're saying, it's pointed you in the direction of what is the ultimate understanding of truth. What can I take from this and point me in a different direction?
Wow. I'm going to make a request, because I feel like at this point there's someone who is watching and who's saying, oh my goodness, yeah, let's carry on this conversation. We're not. But we will ask you, we first appreciate
Yes, yeah.
we appreciate your support, and we're just asking you to subscribe. Subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe.
And that's a great point that you bring up, because in subscribing, it does two things. One is that it is very encouraging to our director.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he needs a lot of support.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think it is certainly encouraging to the other people to say, oh, there is quite a few people that are enjoying this conversation and are getting from. So that does two things on it. And third, it is very encouraging for Tom and myself. So I want to support that comment, is that subscribe, like us, share us, and send an email.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we'd love to hear from you. So thank you again for joining us and being part of this here today.